lectern Rebecca Wells from the Northwest Irrigated Horticultural Node, Mallee Regional Innovation Centre, my apologies, who's going to talk to us about modern drought management of perennial horticultural plants. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, David. Just get myself set up. I will put a timer on because I am known to talk a little bit. Then Excellent. All right. Great to see so many people here and have so many people online, and to have this opportunity to talk about various projects. So we've heard a bit already. Michael had said some stuff, and so is Fiona, in terms of that cross-hub collaboration. So really great opportunities in terms of building up what you can do when you engage across the country with a range of different players. So as David said, I'm Rebecca Wells. Oh, sorry, not used to wearing a mic. Too much hand movement. I'm Rebecca Wells. I'm the CEO of the Mallee Regional Innovation Centre. We're headquartered out of Mildura in the top northwest of Victoria. And as you have heard, we were a partner in the Drought Hub. We actually represent the Northwest Irrigated Horticultural Node and have that as a focus. I'm here today with Alina Syed, our agriculture manager, and she's going to speak to you about consultation process later on today. But I'm here about the cross hubs. So as Michael mentioned, 8 drought hubs across Australia and a number of examples of where drought hubs have come together to work on projects. And the one I'm going to speak to you today is about plant health and longevity of perennial horticultural plants. But a few fast facts about horticulture. I feel part of the role we've been playing too is educating people about horticulture for those that aren't familiar. So total production value of horticulture in Australia for 2022-2023 was 16.3 billion. For every dollar of the value of a horticulture generates, it's an additional 26 cents is created to the rest of the economy, and that amounts to 12.96 billion. And in Northwest Victoria, in the Mildura in particular, Australia's largest horticultural region, is projected to grow by 32% from 1.7 billion in 2021 to 2.2 billion in 29-23. And I think it's going to reach that much earlier than that. And that's from Hort Innovation, some of their stats about horticulture. So the project Plant Health and Longevity was led by the South Australian Drought Hub, and we've got representatives in the room today joining us. And the other partners were the Southern New South Wales, Tasmanian Drought Hubs, and of course, us representing the Victoria Drought Hub. The aims of the project was to identify, there we go, catch up with that. Sorry. The aims of the project was looking to identify gaps and barriers in regional adoption and utilisation of agricultural technology, things like there's connectivity, producer awareness, costs, how regional technology is applied. There's a whole range of things in terms of that decision making to get the technology. And part of this then is to boost that drought preparedness and resilience, and that all ties into a lot of work that the Victoria Drought Hub has done previously in decision making and how critical that decision making is. So this project actually combined quite a number of different activities, and the hubs had different bits that they worked on together. But in particular today, I'm going to talk to you about the technology component. We also had other components, looked at irrigation decision management, and we had a partner in La Trobe University that did some work around that. For what I'm talking to you today, you'll hear about the partners being Melbourne Uni and Sunny TAFE. So, the work that the Drought Hub highlights in terms of that decision making came quite prominently and quite early in terms of the work that the hub was doing. And technology feeds into that, so the ability to make those decisions and operations. So, but before you can use that information and technology to make a decision, how do you make a decision about what is the technology that you want to use? So if you're thinking about drought next time, do you know which patch might dry off in a drought? What happened in the last drought? What would you do differently? Do you really know how much water that patch is using? And can you track it against your water budget? Can you bring forward redevelopment? What would go? What would stay? What would go in? Drought can be new to people. We're learning that. There's generational change. And Alina's going to speak a little bit about some of that today. And what can I learn from the information about the decisions I have and what decisions I need to make? So that capturing of technology and data and how it's used. So our job as part of this project was to set up demonstration sites and look at technology. And we set up a number of mini sites to do that. They were supported by platforms and applications. But there's a number of considerations when you're trying to choose the technology and what you might use. So part of that is the variance between regions, and the cross hubs gave a unique opportunity to talk to each other about what's going on in your region. What are you doing? What are you hearing from industry? What can we learn from each other? And that really sort of influenced and helped develop what we were all doing. And there's a range of reasons in terms of that adoption and uptake that's happening. You know, we were hearing that some regions, technology is actually new for them. It's something that they're wanting to use more. We've got other regions where they've been using technology for a long time and they're looking to have it really multifunctional and to really refine how they can use it. So, you know, finding out what that role of technology plays for us in our region and how it can work for growers to make better changes. So it was really interesting. Part of the conversations with industry, for the first time, we were hearing probably a little bit more honesty about in terms of technology and what it can do. So some growers were telling us it's spending more time with my family. So does that mean you can get technology, you can look at things on your phone, you don't have to go out to site, or you'll get notifications or alerts sent to you? So as you know, farming can be very isolating. Once you put a drought overlay on that, it adds another layer of complexity. So time with family, it's really important. So it's not just about decision making and data in terms of this technology and the impact it has. So, but there's a range of other things you need to consider. So whether that's budget, farm size, digital literacy, cost, and everything like service support as well. And each setup is different, which again complicates matters in terms of how this comes together. How's the technology going to be used? How does it align with the technology I am using? And how can you bring that together to complement what you've already got set up? So our project had to put something on a commercial site, which brought in its own range of challenges. Luckily, we'll be able to find a smart farm that had a commercial side and also had a technology research side. So this is a Sunnytafe smart farm, and they have horticulture and viticultural cropping. It's actually referred to as a salad bowl because of all the different crops that it has on site. And they had some of the crops that we're looking at in particular, which is citrus and almonds and wine grapes for this project. So in terms of bringing industry, they were really well known for bringing industry to site as well. So that was really helpful. But they also had students, and that's something we probably haven't thought a lot about in terms of that adoption and uptake. They had students coming in, studying and using the technology. They go out to employers and they want to use the technology that they're familiar with. So from that educational perspective, the farm offers an opportunity to use a range of technologies, and then they can take that into their workplaces and talk to their employers about it. And, you know, they may make decisions then to use that technology. So the selection of the technology. Again, we, you know, tapped into that hub network. So we spoke to actually a farm in South Australia through the connections with the Drought Hub, and they had selections and criteria that they used when they were looking to put on site. So we looked at that and thought that worked pretty well. We should shape and adapt that. So for us, you know, what was relevant? How did this fit with the horticultural production systems and the viticultural production systems that were on this site? Did the company have a local presence? If something happens, can you get someone out to site, or is it a remote service? What computer skills are required? And that digital literacy is real and can be quite challenging at times for people. Is the technology bleeding edge or leading edge? So that's a term that a farm manager used when we were speaking to him. So that helps define their appetite of what they may trial before they'll adopt something. In terms of service providers, can they scale up in time to get what you want and what you require? We had one tech provider we were talking to. We wanted to put something on site. They couldn't actually manufacture the units in time for the project. So they were starting up. So there's all sorts of challenges for those that are starting up in technology. So then you start to think about, well, will they be here in 3 years' time? Should I actually be using this service provider? So there's a whole range of questions that feed into that. The uniqueness of the technology, is it going to give you a competitive advantage? Is it going to add value? Is it worth the investment? And for this project selection for us too, it was about students as well. Is there an educational value? Compatibility, so the on-farm tech that's already there, how's it going to talk to the technology that you're wanting to put in? And, you know, your current systems like irrigation systems and software, can you pull that into a dashboard and make it complementary? And what's the other information that you need to know? Is it inputting soil data? Do you have that soil data? You know, will I own the technology? Will it have to be uninstalled and reinstalled before and after harvest? Do you have a water budget, and can you input that and track it against what you're using in your patch? So in terms of that selection of the technology, there's a whole lot of questions you need to think about before you even then get the technology and the benefit of it. So collaboration, and I know Fiona and Michael have both spoken about collaboration, and David as well, really important for this project. So we had a lot of partners, of course, as I said earlier, led by the South Australian Drought Hub, Tasmania, Southern New South Wales Drought Hubs involved as well, which, enabled us to learn and share information across landscapes, states and regions. But also at the conclusion of this project, SUNYTAFE and the University of Melbourne signed an MOU for 3 years, so a memorandum of understanding to work together. So that means that that technology is there and still being exposed and industry visiting it. So it gives that, I guess, a bit of longevity to those demonstration sites, which is fantastic. So in terms of what tech was there, we had quite a number of different types of technology, but I think for our region, there's a lot happening in that technology space. And this was reflected with SUNYTAFE back in 2020 when they released a digital book which was called Which App for Horticulture and listed over 60 apps. So you can imagine the amount of data and the information that's there. So our region is really keen to understand how you pull that information into a dashboard application. And how can you make it work for your business? So that's one of the things that we looked with the company to install as well. And we also had tracking systems, weather stations, cameras, crop cameras, soil and moisture monitors, plant sensoring devices that detected pests. So you bring all of that together, it can give you that really good understanding of what is happening on site. So exposing to industry was a big part of this, of course, and we did a lot of work in terms of building up relationships that were new for us. We had over 21 farm tours, 400 participants, 300 growers, agriculture industry representatives, agronomists, policymakers, researchers, students, and the way that SUNYTAFE worked to make all this happen and we worked together was fantastic. I think, the ongoing bit we're starting to see now, we're getting approaches from groups and individuals and organisations, word's getting out. They want to come and have a look. They want to see what's being done on site. So, there's another, I think, nearly 400 that have gone through in the last 6 months, and then another, I think 130 are expecting in the next 3 months. So really pleased to see that activation is there. And part of that links into a whole range of reasons. Demonstration sites have probably gone a little bit out of favour in the last few years. But what we found out through the other part of this project, which I'm not talking about today, but was that demonstration sites are really important. In terms of that adoption, they want champions. They want to see growers in their own region. They want to come and see it in site. They want to talk to those that are using it. They want to know there's some independence. It's not the salesperson from the service provider that's trying to sell them a product. So that farm demonstration site becomes really important and provides a fantastic opportunity. So just also in terms of partnerships and collaborations, I should have mentioned as well that relationship with the service providers and the way that they worked with us to put everything together, that was really important too. And they themselves got things out of the project they didn't expect. It actually became a bit of a test bed. We've talked about commercialisation and impacts of that. So commercial and confidence, I can't speak to all the details, but 3 of the tech providers were testing new applications, decided to work together, were testing and developing an extension of their products. So there was a whole range of things that got built in because we could put them on the demonstration site. So for us, that was sort of an unexpected outcome, but a really great way to see things develop in that space for the industry. So I think in terms of that hub and regional impact, all of those relationships are really important. So before any of that decision making, there needs to be that adoption decisions made in terms of the technology. So what's in it for me, as opposed to even I've just got the tech, now I need to use it. But once you get the tech and you've got it in operation, then that's a whole nother part of this as well. So you'll get batches of data. So how do you read and understand that data and analyse that data? So what we've got from the SUNYTAFE farm now is, you've got this big pool of data. So how do we build, that deeper analysis and understanding? There's some things you can look at as you go and input things in, but how has your water usage tracked against the water budget? Are there trends? Are there surprises? What do we learn that's been by what's collected, and then how do we share that learning? And I just wanted to, I guess, ground this back into growers, because this is what it's all about. And part of this bit does come from La Trobe University's work, where they spoke to growers with the irrigation decision management part of this project. So one grower, I went to an irrigation conference and you go and you see that everyone's selling all those things, sprucing it up, saying how good it is. And it looks great while you're there. But then you do some research and you have a look online and look at the different views. YouTube's great because it shows all the videos and how it works. But you think, oh, no, it's not good. It's not doing what they say it's going to do. But they're pushing it and, they're saying it can plan and do everything. Well, no, it can't. Another grower who we spoke to, you've got to have the experience to actually be able to see the technology over long term from actual usability side. It's the same as, if you want to buy a new PC or a car or something like that, you want to know the ins and the outs, you want to look at it running, you want to take it for a test drive. And finally, adoption is about talking to people who have the same or similar interests in places or getting communication going through. Yeah, I guess if we could bring that in closer somehow, that would just help out everyone really. So we've learned a lot from this project. We're really keen to keep working with the partners and moving forward. And yeah, thanks to the partners for all their support in this. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. We do have time for a question, if there are any questions. I think for me, one of the most ironical moments during the drought often was having a drought hub meeting in Mildura the weekend before the Murray was about to flood. It was, I'm sorry, a question over here.
I guess mine was around
just 1 second.
I guess my question was around any issues around interoperability or whether you get stuck with one proprietor or one that only talks to one group of sensors or one controller, etc.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting component. I think now the push for dashboards, it's making some of the technology providers rethink what they were doing. We've seen technology providers before that I guess have decided to just keep their technology to not include it or put it in as an option. So they're now talking to dashboards and platforms because the licensing and the agreements and the back end of all of that is really quite complicated with how that works and the IP and who owns everything. And it's not an easy process, but through this project in particular, we saw one of the service providers talk to a platform. And my understanding is now, yes, they're going to put their data on the platform. So I think we're starting to see some changes in that. And because there's so much data out there, how do you put it together in a way that's easy to read, is usable, that can be accessed by your whole business? There's a whole range of things that affect that. And I think they're beginning to realise that collaboration is going to be a key to that. People will be wanting to look at data, not just in isolation, but together.
Great. Thank you. One more down the back and then we'll move on. Just 1 second. Sorry. I know what it's like to be online and you can't hear the question in the room.
Thanks. I'm Andrew from the Department of Agriculture in Canberra. I guess it's too early for you to have a sense of what farmers are actually doing as a result of all this, and your baseline is based on the test farm, I guess. Do you have sort of infrastructure in place to kind of capture what is happening on the ground with producers, and whether there's going to be any data coming through about the impact on their sort of productivity and profitability from taking up this? I know you won't have it yet, but you're sort of laying that groundwork for the evaluation side?
Yeah, I think that's part of the next steps. And it's really interesting. We were at the field days recently in Mildura. And I think part of that is the growers, it's getting their trust. So this was a new project that we did in the region. The idea that they're wanting to come in and talk to us now and talking about there's a whole lot of other technology out there that we didn't install. So how are they using that? How does it impact? So I think, that's part of that next bit in terms of what people are taking up and choosing to take up. Fundamentally, there's economics around all of this. So depending on the price point in terms of that adoption too, which is, I guess, an overriding factor with this. So I guess part of this, as you say, will be what we can look at gathering when we move forward. Doesn't quite answer your question, but the sense of it.
Okay, we're going to let you off the hook there, Rebecca, just to keep on time. If everyone could thank Rebecca.